Solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Oh, I think I'm on there right now. Oh, okay. So I need to take the thing off. Okay. One. Hello. Hey, Juan, can you hear us now? Oh, okay. And we're just waiting for our guest to come back on.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There he is. That was really strange.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Good afternoon. We were just listen, we do our shows live. A lot of people want to pre-record the shows. Hey, that's for sissies. We do them live, and whatever happens, happens. I've got a great guest for you this afternoon, Illinois. We're going to be talking about bankruptcy law, the first half of the show, and then we move over to tax relief. And we've got our long-standing expert with us, attorney Kevin Benjamin. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon.
You're in your office today.
Yeah. Working all day.
So I got it. Must be very cold there. We're here in Florida, so
Yeah,
we
it
don't
snowed today.
understand cold weather.
Yeah, it snowed today.
You got snow today?
Yeah.
Don't send any of it over here. So, Kevin, you've been with us for a long time, and I got looking at the YouTube numbers. We're getting so many new viewers. Tell people about your firm.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Benjamin Legal Services. I also have a company called Noble Tax Relief. Basically, we do a lot of consumer bankruptcy, debt restructuring, Chapter 7, Chapter 13, Chapter 11, loan workout and restructuring, litigation, usually with the banks or regarding mortgages, tax resolution, mostly with the IRS and things of that nature. Noble Tax Relief is a separate company. It concentrates solely on just tax resolution, IRS, and some states. The law firm does it too, but the law firm obviously does more. I'm in the U.S. tax court. I'm a member of various federal districts and appellate courts and Supreme Court of the U.S. and other stuff. Not that we have cases there, but I'm in the trial bar. So I have a background in helping people save their homes, restructuring things, dealing with litigation, defending people and businesses, and resolving tax debt as well.
Well, I promised a longtime viewer that we would start off with tax relief today instead of bankruptcy, and we'll kind of start switching it around. Kevin, I got to tell you, when people come to you, they have this huge burden on their back. Whenever the IRS is after you, it's not a good feeling. And I want people to know that there's a way to remedy that. And Kevin, you've got so many things in your bag, so to say, of what you can do to fight the IRS off.
Yeah, that's true. Well, first of all, there's obviously different programs. There's the offer and compromise. There's installment agreements. There's a thing called currently non-collectible effective tax administration, things like that. But the main resolutions are offer and compromise or installment agreements. But there's different types. Like, for example, there's depending on how much you owe or where you are in the tax resolution process. Is there a revenue officer or an agent involved? How much debt you have in that area will dictate how many documents we need and how difficult, how long it will take to resolve the issues. Also, like an installment agreement, there's partial pay installment agreement. There's different levels of that also, and different kinds of installment agreements, streamlined, non-streamlined, same enough or compromise manner. What people got to understand is the IRS, they will resolve your tax issue for what they call the reasonable collection potential. So whether you qualify for an offer and compromise or various installment agreement options or even partial pay, my job is to analyze you, what are your option or options, pros and cons of each, and then help you make an informed decision moving forward. As an attorney who also concentrates in bankruptcy, sometimes taxes are dischargeable. A lot of people don't know that because they're told different things. And then some people are told they're dischargeable only if it's 3 years, and that's not actually true either. That's just one of the prongs. So there's a whole analysis. And also, if you come to me to resolve it, I'm not saying you're filing bankruptcy. We try to resolve the issue. But my job is to give you all your options. If that's one of the options, then that's one of your options. Because depending on your situation, everyone's situation is different. They may have other reasons to do something. Also, I want to know what our options are, liquidation analysis, stuff like that. So I know when I'm negotiating with the IRS, I know what I'm doing. I know where our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, what we can get, what we can't get, and what to fight for and what not to fight for. It's not a matter of just calling on the phone and just throwing out numbers. It's like being a lawyer. You got to be evidence, so to speak. Facts, right. Documentation.
Kevin, we started promoting your show several days ago, and we have gotten so many questions in from viewers. The first one is, what are some of the misconceptions taxpayers have about the IRS tax collection?
Oh, there's a lot of them. A lot of people think that the IRS will immediately seize your assets if you owe taxes. They don't immediately do that. Eventually, there's a notice of intent to levy or try to levy your assets. That's a process. But if you hire someone like myself, doesn't have to be me, but someone who's qualified to represent you in this stuff, you could avoid that. So they don't just take it right away. And there's a process of how you can contest that, and a process before they even get to that stage. People think ignoring the letters makes it go away. People give me a stack of letters when they're not even opened, so it doesn't go away. Okay, people. Some of the scammers call people on the phone. The cops are coming. You're going to go to jail. So then people start thinking you get arrested for that. No, you don't get arrested for owing taxes. There is a criminal division. I mean, there's civil division and criminal, and sometimes you can't eventually get in trouble if you got in the criminal division after a judgment and a court order. But you're not just going to owe money and IRS is coming to your door. They also don't have an unlimited time to collect your taxes. There's a 10-year statute of limitations. Now, there's also tolling events, though. So it's not just a matter of it being 10 years. I got to analyze the whole thing. Are there tolling events in between those 10 years to extend it? But that's what we do also. Some people think, if you make an offer, they have to take it. They don't have to take it, but, they will take it if it's the reasonable collection potential. And my job is to show the IRS the numbers that I give them is the reasonable collection potential. So those are some of the myths. Don't hide your money. People think they can hide money or assets.
I have one for you.
Yeah.
I've got one for you, Kevin. How about some people think they can talk to the IRS themselves and get themselves out of a jam?
Some people can. Most people will make it worse. You can be your own doctor too, your own lawyer, your own plumber if you want to. You can
That's what I've learned from you.
Money. I have people call me that they tried it on their own. They're like, well, the IRS said this is the number because they're not your lawyer. They're not looking out for you. You just call the IRS, or you're saving attorney fees or a resolution officer person's fee. But how do you know you're getting the best deal? You can go online to the IRS and then just punch some numbers in, and they'll say just pay this. And they'll take the money. That doesn't mean that you can't get an offer in compromise or a partial pay or a better installment agreement. And everyone's situation is different. So yeah, some people are educated enough to do it, but most people it's like death and taxes, or talking to public speaking or talking to the IRS. It's not what people really want to do, and I would suggest that you don't do
I
it.
just want to remind people that we replay this show additional three times during the month for the tax relief. So here's a listener, Kevin, that really enjoys your show. And he said, can you provide us with an overview of how the IRS tax collection process works?
Well, sure. I mean, first of all, they're going to send you some letters. Okay.
That's be the where it starts.
Yeah. And, you should probably just hire us to do it. But they're going to send you letters. I don't know what stage you're in, so it's hard to tell you what the complete overview would be and something like that. But, maybe it's just, hey, you didn't file your tax returns, or, you haven't paid, you filed, but you haven't paid yet, stuff like that. Then you get different kinds of letters of intent, letters for federal tax lien, letters to levy, stuff like that. So it's all process. They're not going to call you. They're not going to email you. They're not going to knock on your door, stuff like that. It's all really in writing. And they may give you collection due process rights. They may give you these different letters with these different deadlines. And that's what you just give someone like myself to take care of for you.
That's we get so many letters, people going, does the IRS email you? And I've learned from doing your show that they don't do that.
No. Now, basically, I mean, the first thing they do is they assess your tax debt. Okay, how much do you turn? Look at your tax return. Maybe they did an audit. Maybe you didn't file. They might do what's called an SFR, a substitute for return. They're filing it themselves, and they're saying, "Hey, good news, we did it for you. You owe 10 grand." So, and oftentimes that happens if you wind up filing it yourself or redoing it. You can reduce some of that obligation right then. So, after it gets assessed, they send a notice, right, which is really like a bill of the notice due. They give you the collection deadlines, the intent to levy, that kind of stuff, and otherwise, to put a tax lien on there, they may levy you, they may garnish your wages, things of that nature. That's kind of the process. But they don't just automatically just go right to a levy. It's got to be assessed, but they may assess it for you if you didn't file. So you don't want that.
Here's a text that just came in. I cannot believe I just found your show. I have been thinking about hiring a company. Thank you for giving us the phone number. We just gave me your phone number and your email address. What happens if you work out a payment arrangement with the IRS and then you start to fall behind? What happens?
Well, we got to fix it. Otherwise, you're going to get kicked out. So once you have like an installment agreement, for example, you must stay compliant. Even if you do not offer a compromise, you got to keep filing your returns and stay compliant. And the taxes going forward, you got to pay because it's not included in your, your installment agreement. And if you not compliant, even if you're current on your installment agreement, they're going to kick you out. And if you just stop making payments, they kick you out, but it doesn't mean you can't try it again. And depending how much you owe, there's also a Chapter 13. Sometimes you can just do a Chapter 13 and pay it over 5 years. Depending how much you owe, sometimes it's worthwhile doing that. Sometimes it's not. So there's different ways to do things. See, also, why are you not making the payment? Do you have other kinds of debts? That's why you want to talk to someone like me who's got, an attorney and, the creditor debtor area, bankruptcy, stuff like that. Can we reduce or eliminate other debts so you could afford it? I have a lot of that happening with the mortgage stuff. People, I can't afford the mortgage payment. But, well, you're paying $500,000, $800,000 a month on credit cards. You're the wrong priority. You can't pay the mortgage. I have to get rid of the other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Or reduce the other stuff. So that's why you come to someone like me to look at the overall things, not just a one-stop like I do offer and compromise, or I do installment agreements. Some lawyers, they only do Chapter 7. They don't do 30. I do everything. Okay, whatever you need. So my job is to analyze the entire situation. I've been doing this like over 35 years, over 36 years. There's not a lot of situations I haven't seen. Once in a while, things come up. But, you're always learning, always staying on top of things. But it seems overwhelming. I get it. It is overwhelming. But that's why you come to a professional or someone like myself who can resolve things in different ways. Because sometimes the tax debt isn't really the problem. It's some of the other stuff is the problem. And I could fix that as well and give you a whole plan.
We talk about individual that actually owe money to the IRS, but Kevin also handles businesses too. And one of the things I've learned from doing the show with you is if you're a business owner and you want to try to handle this yourself, good luck from getting a live voice on the phone. I had a guy tell me he waited 2 hours on hold with the IRS.
Not bad.
You don't have those kind of problems, do you?
Sometimes we do. Sometimes we do.
You're on hold for 2 hours?
Depends. Like oftentimes we can get, depending on the situation, there's a revenue officer or an agent assigned to the case. It's easier for me to get a hold of somebody. What happens sometimes is you're maybe in the ACS, the automated collection system. And if you're calling that, or if I'm calling that, 2 hours is like not bad. I'm saying so, because you can't get through. So even when I eventually get through, I try to get somebody assigned. So in the future, every time I call, I don't have to be waiting on hold for 2 hours. I mean, and there's some services that and the IRS starts fighting that. There was people like myself would pay, and they like get in line for you. And so that way you're not waiting all the time. And the IRS was having a problem with that. But no, usually if we have a person, we just talk to the person. So that's nice.
This is from Marvin. He's in Chicago. He said, can you explain the various collection actions the IRS can take to recover unpaid taxes?
Yeah, they could, first of all, they'll notice a federal tax lien your property. They can garnish your wages. They could levy your assets, which is actually seizing your property and then selling it, things of that nature. If it's a criminal thing, they could put you in the criminal division, file a suit in federal court, and you can do time. So they have ways to collect.
Do taxpayers have rights when it comes to unpaid taxes, Kevin?
Sure. Installment agreements offer compromises. I mean, you have to qualify for these things. It's not an automatic constitutional right? But you have the right to resolve your issues or question their taxes. Like I said, if they did a substitute for return, that's usually pretty easy because they're just doing it for you. Then you have a CPA take your proper exemptions or deductions, whatever, and you file it, and then amend the return. Oftentimes that resolves it right then and there. They're just trying to get you to do that. But yeah, you have absolute right to dispute your stuff, to get a copy of your file, go over the collection statute expiration dates, assessment collection expiration dates. You have appeal rights, collection due process rights. So you have a U.S. tax court, all kinds of things you can do.
Here's, I think this is from Chicago. I don't know if this is a bankruptcy or a tax relief, but they want to know, does your firm handle debt relief?
Well, technically, we're a debt relief agency according to the United States Supreme Court. They blocked or put the attorneys into that category. So it's like sometimes even on the retainer agreement, it'll say debt relief agency because it's supposed to give us disclosure. Bankruptcy is debt relief, yeah. Chapter 13 is like a court-ordered bill consolidation, paying some bills in full, maybe some bills less than full. Chapter 11 is a restructuring. So you restructure debt, or you could eliminate it in a Chapter 7, depending on any qualifications. You want to keep your assets, and there's different exemptions and stuff like that. So yeah, we resolve debt. That's what we do. If talking about bill consolidation outside of Chapter 13, no. That's just all those companies online, they're going to consolidate your debt. You make it all BS.
Here's one. When should a taxpayer consider hiring you to help them with their issues with the IRS? I have not received a letter yet, but I kind of expect one any day.
Yesterday, should have hired me. You don't need to wait for a letter, okay? Because I can get a copy of the file. I get a copy of the whole transcripts, all the file, analyze everything, what they're looking at, what the IRS says you have and don't have, what they're doing, what the dates are. There's no reason to wait for them to come after you. You might as well get ahead of the game. Because if I get a power of attorney on file, they'll work with me, right? So there's two separate authorizations. One is a authorization to release information, which is not a power of attorney, which just allows me to get the IRS file if I wasn't being hired for the full case yet. So maybe just wanted to analyze the situation. A full power of attorney makes me the lawyer, and the IRS would talk to me on it. They won't talk to me only on the authorization. I can get the file for that. But to do the full blown, I have an actual power of attorney on file with the IRS. I get the files, I do the communications, everything. And, I'll give you a whole intake and stuff. I'll be analyzing. I know what they're looking for, right? So I know what to ask you. So I'll have it all ready because, I'll have every option we have. You don't even have to have a letter. I just analyze everything. If you have more than one option, we'll pick the one we want to go with. And I just submit the offer and compromise or the installment agreement or the partial pay installment agreement. And then I'll be of record also. So you don't need to wait. Just get ahead of the game. Because I know if you get a letter, that just means they're coming after maybe sooner. I don't know if it's a assessment letter or notice of lien letter or levy letter, but they're pressing you. But you don't need to wait for that. You owe money. Let's get ahead of the game and submit. I'll submit something for you, but we got to get some information from you first, documentation. It's a whole proposal, and we'll just submit it with the power of attorney, and we'll be negotiating with the IRS for you, and they'll work with us. And while they're talking to us, you won't have those issues.
Here's a listener from Indiana wants to know: does it hurt your credit if you're having trouble with the IRS?
Well, if you're having trouble with the IRS, your credit's not your problem, is it? So,
yeah, really.
I mean, it's amazing. People call me they're losing their house or something, and well, check my 1,300 my credit. I mean, you're losing your house. How's that? You're not paying your mortgage. How's your credit doing for that? It's like people talk about they're not paying their credit. I mean, it's like you're not paying anybody. So don't worry about your credit, right? So worry about resolving the issue. Part of your credit is how much you owe, right? And also, if you own property and they got a lien on your property, that's a lien on your equity. So then you can't refinance it without paying them or paying all the money to them and having the partial released. You're just coming into the whole situation. So a notice of tax lien is not good if they have a lien on where you're at, because it's really a blanket lien. And quite frankly, they don't have to file a notice of tax lien. It's actually a lien when you're just trying to collect. The notice is just notice to other creditors. The lien is still there. So if you got IRS debt, that's your main problem, not your credit.
Yeah. Is it?
By the way, they're also incurring penalties and interest with the IRS. So besides your credit, I mean, you're just compounding a lot of things, and they're a powerful agency. They just pass their own statutes. They charge, penalties and interest, and they're first in line, and they can do a lot of stuff. So, next question.
Kevin, I saved this question for this portion of the show. A gentleman wrote us. He said, "I've heard 3 of your shows now, and I hired a company to handle my tax problems. And it's funny, once I paid them, I could barely get them on the phone again. My question to you is, can I get out of that agreement to hire your firm?" That's a good question.
Well, of course, I'll cancel it for you. Because I mean, basically, you probably hired one of those national BS firms,
Yes.
right? And you're just dealing with a call center who's just trying to get your credit card and get your money. They don't have a team of accountants and CPAs. They don't have a team of lawyers just rocking and rolling with the IRS. It's all a bunch of BS. So, and then all their crap about the Fresh Start program. I mean, that's 15 years old. There's no Start Fresh program. Start Fresh program is simply you can resolve.
There is no Fresh Start program?
There never was. It was like 14 years ago or something like that. All it was changing the numbers on the on the offer and compromise, and how many years you can get, all that kind of stuff. There's no people market on the radio, the Fresh Start program, the IRS is you solve your debt. They're always willing to solve your debt, So what's this Fresh Start program? It's just a marketing gimmick, right? So there's no BS. You have a power of attorney probably on file with this company. So I could file a power of attorney if you hired me, and that cancels the power of attorney with the IRS. Okay. And then I would notify the other firm also that they're out. So you can.
Okay. That's going to finish our tax relief portion of our show. We're going to go on to bankruptcy. And it's amazing, Kevin. It's our still number one question we get of all the chapters. Chapter 11 is what most people want to know about.
Chapter 11 is we do a lot of Chapter 11s. There's different kinds. There's a regular Chapter 11. They have what's called a sub 5 category of Chapter 11. They have a small business Chapter 11. They have a single asset real estate. Are you there?
Yep. Okay.
Right. So, but basically, I mean, it's usually a corporate restructuring, though an individual can do it. And sometimes they have to because there's like debt limits in a Chapter 13. And there's also 13 has a 60-month limit also. So there's different reasons. But it's a restructuring of debt, okay? So, and a sub 5 came about a few years ago to streamline small businesses. So depending on, what kind of debt you have and the amount of your debt, it's a faster process to confirmation. There's a sub 5 trustee that helps also, different deadlines on filing a plan, that kind of stuff. So depending on whether you're doing that or doing a regular one, there could be quarterly U.S. trustee fee, stuff like that. Single asset real estate has different deadlines also. There's a small business one with also different deadlines that's different than a sub 5. But these are those types of Chapter 11. Overall, at Chapter 11, you restructure your debt. You're trying to reorganize the debtor, right? So you're reorganizing the company, or if you're an individual, you're just reorganizing your debts under Chapter 11. Compared to Chapter 13, for example, with the debt limits or the 60-month deadline, in a Chapter 13, you make plan payments that you estimate starting 30 days after you file the case, and the plan has to be filed within 14 days if not filed with the case. In a Chapter 11, you have 120 days in a regular Chapter 11, exclusive right to file your own plan. On a sub 5 or single asset real estate or small business, it may come down to 90. There's ways to get extensions also if you need it, but you don't always need that because the extra time is because you're negotiating with your creditors because trying to get a vote where you're not getting a vote in a Chapter 13. It's also ways to cram down a vote if you want to try to override a creditor's vote in a Chapter 11 to get it confirmed. And then you have to do a detailed, what they call a disclosure statement with the Chapter 11, unless it's a sub 5, then you don't. But unless the court orders that. But basically, you put your debts in categories, and you got to pay people like-minded creditors similarly, but not everyone's the same thing, and you're getting votes in categories. And it may sound a little more complicated because it's a lot of time, but it's something that I would do, for you. But basically, it's just you're not paying the plan payments right away. You don't plan the plan payments till confirmation. So you may have what's called like adequate protection payments. I'm about to file a motion right after our podcast here, Chapter 11, a couple what they call first day motions. But one is, this one's an individual. So we're going to offer the current mortgage payment, a full principal, interest, taxes, insurance as adequate protection. So we don't get as far behind anymore in trying to negotiate the large arrearage that we need more than 60 months on. And I said a couple, 2025 confirmed, one just last month on an individual, $135,000. The lender took a while to come around, but then when we were going to go to confirmation, they were going to say no, and they filed an objection. And we told them we were going to try to litigate the issue as far as their good faith and stuff. They just made a deal. So, and I mean, you're paying back, you know what I'm saying? And I have business Chapter 11s. I've done some in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois. I have 2 more businesses who retained me. I haven't filed yet. And, depending if you have employees or is there cash collateral involved, and, how complicated it can get depends on the business and the person's situation. But otherwise, it's just a corporate restructuring. A Chapter 13 is like a personal restructuring of debt, the way a corporation would go, but it's more streamlined, simpler, and more affordable. But that's why you have the debt limits, you have the 60-month stuff like that. Chapter 11 is more labor-intensive, customized plan, different situations, different benefits. Whether you need 11 or 13 or qualify for either one, you may qualify for both. I would go over it with you.
And what about Chapter 7?
Chapter 7 is a straight bankruptcy. It's they call it a liquidation, but you only liquidate non-exempt assets. And like, for example, Illinois, finally, in January 1st, 2026, they just raised the exemptions on a lot of different assets. Not as much as we all. Or losing something, maybe you want to surrender, right? Or maybe there's not a lot of non-exempt equity and the trustee's not going to take it. Or we have some sevens where we go in there knowing they may liquidate a little bit, or you can buy out a little bit, but maybe you're losing 100, 200 grand debt. You're talking about 10 grand maybe to try to settle with the trustee, which they take payments on. So then you go in there knowing, what's going on, because I'll analyze your exemptions and any potential, equity exposure. Otherwise, sometimes you analyze that. You can do a Chapter 13 and pay only the non-exempt equity over 5 years. So sometimes you pay maybe your mortgage in full or your car, or maybe you're paying less in full the car. You cram it down, right? But you pay some bills in full, and then you may be paying some bills, 1, 2, 4 cents on the dollar, 20 cents on the dollar, whatever it is. Or you can just go with the 7, because a 7 liquidation, it's not, if you're a client of mine, it's not going to be a surprise, because I'll know if how much I think it may be liquidated that we can work out, or if the trustee's trying to shake us down for a certain amount of money. If they are, I may even go to court and object to it. But I know what the exposure is, so you weigh the pros and cons. If it's 5, 10 grand, for example, but I'm getting rid of $100,000, $200,000, and maybe it's when I go for the 7, maybe they don't do anything on the 10 grand. Maybe I can beat that in court. Otherwise, you make a deal with the trustee and buy out the non-exempt equity. That's how they make money. The Chapter 7 trustee, they get a fee, for that. That's all.
This is from Mark. He said, "I'm really enjoying your show. Is there a downside to filing Chapter 11?
No. I mean, it's not like, hey, I heard about this Chapter 11. Let's just have some fun and you put your business in Chapter 11. There's no downside, because you're probably losing your business if you're doing Chapter 11. And if you're doing an individual Chapter 11, maybe you're in foreclosure or something like that, or there's other reasons to be doing it, you get the automatic stay, right? So you stop creditors and you can try to restructure. So, the situation of your debts and creditors is what's making you come to someone like myself to consider Chapter 11 and reorganizing. That's what it's for. That's a positive thing, right? You're paying people back, right? Some are in full, some maybe not, but you're restructuring, saving jobs, saving your business, or if you're an individual, maybe you're saving your house and other things. So there's no downside to saving things. I don't know what someone would mean by downsize.
Everybody's case is different. He had a follow-up. He wanted to know who gets paid first on Chapter 11.
Well, we decide. I mean, we do a plan, right? So there's different, we do a Chapter 11, we put your creditors in classes, right? Could be secured, unsecured, some priority. But even among those categories, there could be some have liens, some don't. Maybe there's equity investors or owners of the company. So there's different categories, right? And then when we put the plan together, we're saying who gets paid first and how much. I mean, you pay your secured creditors first, but you can make a payment on the unsecured. But the unsecured may not be getting 100%. So I have one right now. I mean, even the creditor called me. He's like, "Hey, how about my $130,000 claim?" I said, "Yeah, but that's unsecured. It's in that category." Now, in that business case, that they actually are getting paid 100% because there's plenty of money. But it's just a matter of even the creditors call. I don't understand where I'm getting paid in their plan. So they just want to know. They just want to know they're getting paid. That's all. So everyone gets paid, but I have some that aren't getting paid 100%, but that's how it is. So I have some that are paying simultaneously. I have one that was just confirmed they're paying the mortgage as priority, but the unsecured, we're paying them like less than 100% pennies. So that's a small payment, so they're actually making that at the same time. But we restructure that with everybody. We decide with our client.
Kevin, can you write off tax liens in bankruptcy?
Okay, I don't know what that means. A tax lien. A tax lien is a lien on your property. So I don't know what there was to.
I guess they want to know if you can make them go away.
Okay, sometimes yes, because a tax lien is different than a regular. There's judgment liens, and there are liens that impair an exemption that you could have removed. Okay, tax liens are, but see, like you may owe, say, $100,000, and they got a tax lien on your house, but there's like no equity, so it's not really a lien. I mean, it's a lien, but there's nothing really there, right? So when you're making a resolution with the IRS, then you make the payments, you have the liens released. But the lien is not something that you write off, because the lien is on the equity. The debt would get paid, and the lien is part of the resolution analysis on how much we're paying them. Because even if, again, they have a lien on your property, if the debt is so much more than the liens, it's not really fully secure. So there's still room to negotiate with the IRS.
What are some of the most significant challenges a business might face while going through Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Chicago?
Well, what you do, not necessarily Chicago, but anywhere, you're usually what's called a debtor in possession. So in other words, you're still running the business, right? There are situations where maybe someone brings a trustee in to run it, but otherwise you're still running your business. But as far as like how about your equity distribution, right? That's coming after the creditors. And of course, you got to file monthly operating reports, money in, money out. But you can't just be taking bonuses and do whatever you want. So you're actually controlling yourself. You're restructuring. We're doing it for you, with you, as a debtor in possession. But there is a trustee, a U.S. trustee, looking at the operating reports, and the creditors can look at it too. Because when you file the plan, we want to show here's our cash flow, here's what we're doing. But you can't just go wild with the company and start just taking money, bonuses, and prioritizing yourself, stuff like that. But usually there's no trustee taking over, or a receiver or anything like that taking over the business. So the pros outweigh the cons, and the pros are you're getting cash flow and relief, so you could actually restructure and pay yourself eventually. But you're not the priority on that. So there's some downside as far as that goes. But then again, there's not really a downside, because you wouldn't be doing it unless you needed to do it. You know what I'm saying? In which case you're staying in business, operating on your own still, and so that's really an upside.
It's a good text. Kevin, I recognized your name. You handled my friend's bankruptcy.
Oh.
He raved about you.
Thank you.
What advice would you give a business owner who are struggling financially, or they're unsure whether Chapter 11 is the right path for them?
Just call me. The consultation's free. I mean, it may take more than a phone call, but we can do an analysis on the company, and because everyone, like we were saying before, everyone's different. Are you being sued? Are you being levied? What kind of cash flow? Sometimes someone's got maybe these merchant accounts that are putting liens on all their cash flow. I had to file a case for a business there a few months ago because the IRS, they owe hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they just levied all their accounts, all their cash flow. 20 plus employees about to be out of business, so was the company. So we had a file to restructure that, and that's going pretty well right now. But you have to. And in that case, you had no choice. But you want to talk to me before that, because you want to see what kind of categories we are. Is it someone suing you or not suing you? Is there an urgency? Can we try to restructure without that? And sometimes, oftentimes people file on a company, they may file Chapter 11, make deals with their creditors, and come out of Chapter 11. Now you have a little leverage there too. So, but like I had one guy just come in last week, and he's got some problems. And he's like, oh, you can just call the lawyer. Like, no, they're suing you. They're going to take your stuff. What, hi, I'm the lawyer. Can you not do that, please? I mean, come on, right? So you got to hire me to defend you in state court, but in his case, you don't really have the defenses. And the idea was just to restructure. So I'm like, this is a file. Then I'll call him. Like, we're fine.
I want to get this question in. A friend of mine, I was considering bankruptcy. A friend of mine told me I don't owe enough to file bankruptcy. Your thoughts?
Your friend doesn't know anything about anything. That's my thought. What's he talking about? How much they have to owe? I've been doing this a long time. There's no minimum. I mean, 10 grand to one person is 100 grand to somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So, and I'm not saying you file on 10 grand, you know what I'm saying, but everyone's situation is different. There's no minimum amount owed. If you came to me, I have people coming, 3,000, 4,000, like, what are you filing for? You know what I'm saying? You don't need to, right? And there's different ways to do it. But some people, like maybe it's 10 or 15, it's like, but now someone's garnishing their wages at 25% and they're a single mom with 4 kids. They can't have that. So they're forced into different things. Stop talking to non-lawyers is my advice. Stop talking to your friends who don't know anything, who were on Google or went to some cocktail party and said, hey, everyone's talking about how to do stuff because they're all smart. Or no. Okay, there's no minimum. You decide what the minimum is. I have someone, the credit cards, especially, they're 25, 30, 36% interest. If people don't know how, you owe 50 grand, all that interest. Someone called yesterday, well, I haven't really been paying them. Otherwise, it's supposed to be $1,000 a month, but it's not paying it. It's just compounding, right? Or someone's making their minimum payments, you're still getting further in debt because your minimum payment's less than the interest. So you're just a hamster on the wheel. It's never going down, and you're not getting any brownie points on your credit because your debt is so high. Your debt-to-income ratio is trashed, and a big part of your credit, it's not your payment history, it's part of it. It's your debt-to-income ratio, your credit utilization rate. So you're just constantly in bad credit, going nowhere. No one's giving you brownie points. Good luck trying to get a mortgage or even an apartment. Hey, I didn't file bankruptcy, but I have all these liens on me and all these credit card debt, but I'm paying. Because you're just they're not going to do it. Your credit's not good. You think you are, but it's not. Also, your credit. Are you applying for a mortgage or a car? They have different scales. Different. They don't want to tell you the algorithm. And also which one are they using? The TransUnion model or the other model? So they don't want you to have a good credit score. They want you to have good enough credit to be financeable, where they can jack you on the interest rate. They don't want you to have A credit where you're getting prime. They want to have you in the system, in the debt system, just paying every month for the rest of your life. Stay healthy, eat well, and keep paying them. That's what they want. Okay.
If people can't tell, Kevin is so upfront. Sometimes you might not like what he has to say, but he is telling you the way it is. He's so experienced. Kevin, tell people how they can reach you who are listening on radio now.
Kevin Benjamin. You go to either benjaminlaw.com or nobletaxrelief.com. Main number 312-853-3100. Let's go to benjaminlaw.com, and all the contact information is right there. Give me a call.
Kevin's with us every month. We'll be running the tax relief version of the show 3 more times this month. Kevin, you're the best.
Thank you. Nice seeing you.
Okay. We'll see you next month. Thank you, Kevin. That's attorney Kevin Benjamin. Hey, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.